Hi, Wen. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to the cast. We're so excited to have you here and to learn more about your career journey. So I'll jump right into the first question that we have for you. Can you share your experience of moving from a big company like Deloitte to starting your own business? What were the main difficulties that you faced while starting and running your own company?
I think for me, it started back when I was an undergraduate. I don't know if you guys are in your post grad or undergrad, but I went to University of Waterloo for my undergraduate and I'm class of 2018. I was pretty involved with our startup ecosystem there. We have a program called Velocity and we're close to Community Tech, which is sort of like a startup hub based in Waterloo. Transitioning to Deloitte was actually more difficult because, I had to learn the rules, the ways of conduct in the consulting world. But luckily, like a lot of the skills that I've learned in my co-op terms, as well as my experience building projects and products, transferred really well at Deloitte. And then I think the experience transitioning back to entrepreneurship felt pretty natural because I've learned a ton in consulting. And I was fortunate enough to try different service lines while I was there as well. So it gave me a pretty well spectrum of skills. And it's something I recommend everybody to also, look at career choices in terms of breaking down not by what jobs I have, but the qualities that you want to cultivate almost or develop in jobs. And that makes the process of job selecting a lot more rewarding and focused. Yeah.
Definitely. I agree with that aspect of
Mhm.
gauging which qualities you want to foster growth in and then choosing a
Mhm.
job following that path. I definitely agree with that statement. So thank you for
Mhm.
sharing. Just moving past that. So during your time in college, I'd love to know
Mhm.
what subjects you studied and how you think they helped you in your job.
Mhm.
Additionally, how did your studies prepare you for the challenges you encountered in your career?
For me, if I had to redo it, well, I'll first start with the first question is I went to a program called Accounting Financial Management, short for AFM in Waterloo. It's part of School of Accounting and Finance. There, I picked that program was because I wanted some good foundation in business. I know that both of you go to really awesome business schools, but for me, I needed something that helped me get co-op and sort of tell me some of like the boring stuff of business, which is also the lifeline, which is I thought accounting was important. After did my first two co-op, I knew accounting and finance wasn't really for me. So I jumped into product. And lucky for me was I joined Thomson Reuters AI Labs. That co-op experience really shaped the courses I took. I didn't take heavy accounting finance courses. I took some things that are more relevant to things I'm interested in. So I took a lot of system courses. I took a bit of CS as well. So it gave me that breadth of experience. Actually, not so much CS. I think it was called data mining. It's called data mining. Forgot the course code. And I also took sales courses. I knew that those skills would come in handy because those qualities would be needed, regardless the role that, we'll be headed into. So pretty much that was my experience, was really trying to get the co-op jobs, using the co-op opportunities to try different things and refining those qualities that I think you all know what's important, or you have a good idea of what you need by the time you graduate.
I think that
Mhm.
information that you've given there is very helpful. And I
Mhm.
agree that it's very important to place a lot of importance on the co-op programs that schools offer as well. So thank you
Mhm.
for your insight on that. And I'll just pass it off to Ian for the rest of the questions. Ian, you're welcome to go ahead.
So for our next question, if you had the chance to choose a field of study and courses today, what would
Yeah.
you pick? And why do you think these choices would be beneficial for your future, considering the current job market and technology trends?
I want to break this down a bit because they're very important and I don't want to give the wrong advice. I think it's important for all of us to take source of all sources. So what I mean is there's a word going around called the first principle. I would take first principle courses. What I mean by that is develop the framework, the way of thinking, so that once you learn that course, you can easily translate it to secondary courses. I'll give you an example. Good examples would be in STEM courses, it would be mathematics, it would be physics, because those courses can be found across all engineering disciplines almost. Having that will help you do really well across multiple disciplines in STEM. In business, that could be maybe accounting, economics. Those are foundational courses that give you a really good idea of the rules that our world operates in. And I think psychology, right? It's way how to deal with people. Once you have the source of source courses, what you'll find is you take one course, but you cover a breadth of disciplines. And it teaches you to learn as you do, especially as you guys, go into the workforce. I think picking surface course is good too, but you have to have a really good reason to do it. Is it to learn to build a product? Is it to land a job? Is it to, but I would definitely take the first principle course for sure. And then there's such a huge paradigm shift right now, not just in North America, but the rest of the world. What we're seeing is sort of like the closure of industrialization. What I mean by that is we're humans, we're so good at optimization, we're replacing ourselves. And replacing what kind of job? We're replacing any job that uses our logical side of the mind. So everything that is logic based, that you can describe the logic to a machine and that doesn't require deep critical thinking, those skills will gradually be replaced by AI. And we can jump to that topic later because I did spend 2 years working in this field. So I think we're seeing this paradigm shift where I think it's important for us to learn to use both sides of our brain, jobs that require both. So I'll give an example. Product management, I think would do really, really well. The ability to R&D a product and ship it to customer, that line is getting really, really easy for all of us. If you click a buttons, you can already ship a software. Now the teams are getting smaller and smaller. Being aware of this, I think would give you a good idea of like, I don't want to compete with robots. And I also want to, use what humans are really great at doing: creativity, innovation, working with people, sentiment analysis, all these things. We can go in detail on that. But I would say technology wise, I would focus specifically on artificial intelligence. It embodies a lot of the previous tech. So if you can really have a good grasp of artificial intelligence and you have enough understanding on how it can benefit you before you go deep dive into the technical, I feel like the future, I almost see it like inseparable. Like AI is like the new internet almost. That's basically my thoughts on your previous question is field of study for sure, pick those principal courses, and then you can double down in areas that you're interested in. Like if you want to do marketing, I think that's a really good field to go in. Finance, I'm not sure anymore because it depends what kind of finance. I think a combination of business or an STEM course would be ideal. I think a lot of universities, they're offering binary courses now. So they offer like a mix of these right brain and left brain. If you come here to Waterloo and Laurier, you'll see that we have a lot of dual degrees or something, something, and something, something. So because in the crossroad of these disciplines, that's where you can innovate. You can do new things.
And for our next question, how can students gain real-world experiences beyond internships? And what are some practical ways for students to develop their skills and feel more confident about their future careers?
I would go back to Sophie's earlier point, right? I think having a really good first principle understanding that if you were to sort of do a CT scan, we go to hospitals to get our body scan, but if you look at your scan of like your qualities, your skills, what we call kind of like your elements, instead of focusing on things that don't motivate you, or I just need a safe job, I think we're in an era where there's a lot of opportunities to do something we're passionate about and do really well. And I think a recent Harvard report, I forgot the name, but they measured that the single most success factor for any person in the workday is how happy they are at work. And happiness can come from different factors. But if you can then find something that you really enjoy doing and micro dive it into its qualities, and then find projects or even clubs or even joining conferences and talks. By attending these things, you're already developing those micro qualities. For example, the ability, and I'll give you some micro qualities that probably are foreign to you guys. Number one is how do you deal with mental distress? We all feel anxiety. We all feel, I hear students say like imposter syndrome. How do you deal with the mind, right? That's a quality that unfortunately is not really taught in school that well. I could be wrong, but I think those things are highly important and you should develop these qualities too. The ability to work with people, the ability to manage stress. Those are things that are not really taught, but then there's also things that are readily taught. So going down to these qualities and finding projects that have that would be amazing. And now to be more concrete, I would say, how do you develop their skills? I think the most impressive thing that employers that I know they look for are the ability to go from 0 to 1. And now I call it 0 to 9. The ability to come up with a completely innovative solution to a hard problem and then come up with a creative spin. Show that you can keep the innovative idea and ship it. Because I know that most companies that I talk with, they're not in need of optimizers. they are in need of English. And now it's a real thing because with AI now, people are literally producing the same thing faster. So how do you kind of understand the customer better and create new value that AI can't produce? There's a word in Chinese, I forgot the name. It's called, in English, it means blank spot in the world. You need to go to those blank spot and you need to have courage. Another quality is how courageous are you? Are you willing to be the first person to step into no man land? And that's where I think, having those qualities to go with you, to go to almost like to war, to battle, because that's where the future where, you bring your AI and you create completely new things, which is very exciting, but also a bit scary to some people. But hopefully that answers the question you had just there.
So for our next question, what methods did you use to cope with overwhelming situations and just maintain a good balance between work and personal life?
Okay, let's see. I think the biggest stress was how I felt like I was treating myself. There's people talk about your relationship with your parents, with your peers. But for me, I think I was pretty strict on myself in a way that, people say like I'm very nice to other people. In fact, sometimes, I don't hold them to the level of standard I hold to myself. But I think for me, the ability to handle stress is to understand yourself better. And that can take a year, that can take 5 years, that can take 10 years. And then once you understand yourself better, you start to realize those things that really kind of make you stress, make you unhappy, and you start to tackle those more. I felt I was good at that in a way that I wasn't always trying to be the best of the best. I always prioritize my health. I always prioritize how happy I was. And, I was someone pretty deep in my thoughts too. So I was very lucky to work with my mentors. So I didn't get to a point where it's very difficult. But I think another thing that I hear from my peers is that they have this sort of fear of the future because there's so much competition from the peers they have. People like to compare themselves to the closest competition they see, like their peers. For yourself might be your peers, and then you compete for jobs, and then it starts to stack up. For me, how I dealt with it was I really looked at the strengths of these students, and I tell myself, why is it that they're able to get these jobs? It seems like they're really passionate about it. They have a lot of drive. That drive is so authentic that for them, it's like a painter, right? When a painter is happy doing the drawing, the art tends to be good. But on the other hand, I see students who do it out of pure, I would call it like kind of status game, or call it like I'm safe. I'm like that tends to produce unhappy people, and they don't tend to end up in places that they can thrive in. It's usually people who are authentically happy and motivated to do those things. They do that. So how do you cope with overwhelmed situations? Well, ask yourself this: why are you overwhelmed? Do you really enjoy what you're doing? By not enjoying it 8 hours, 9 hours a day, you're probably not going to hack for most of the time. And the sort of stress that workload is coming to you, are you able to deal with it with a positive mindset? Or are you going to constantly like suffer through it, right? So ask yourself why you're overwhelmed and get to the root cause of it. Usually I find people who are really, really motivated to do what they do and are in a place where they are honest with themselves. They don't end up in situations where they're extremely overwhelmed. They're stressed because it's part of life, but they're able to manage really, really well. So that would be what I've learned in my experience during undergrad and since I graduated too, was really focusing on that relationship towards myself too. Yeah.
That was really insightful. And I think our first conversation was about this topic, and I still think about it to this day.
Mm,
So
that's
I think it's
good.
really, yeah.
That's good. It means you're introspecting, right? You're doing the inner work first, because that's the first step. And then the outlet side really is just a projection. I think sometimes my team calls it stuck in the matrix, comparing to other people, looking at the outside world, wanting more and more and not being grounded to like how we truly feel, how our mind works. I think that's where all the trouble starts to brew up. But that's my take. Yeah.
Perfect. And I'm just going to pass the last question back to Sophie.
I really loved your answers to those questions. And just for
Great.
the last question, it's another double question, but I think you've touched on the second part in your previous answer, which was what lessons you've learned from your experiences that could have helped you earlier in life. But the first part is a little bit different. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice to your younger self, what exactly would that advice be?
If I had one thing I'd give was fall in love with learning, fall in love with growing yourself to become the solution to not just your problems, but everybody else's problem. I think almost all the problems begin with our thinking because we didn't have the perspectives, the knowledge, the wisdom to think about it. And then all the solution also begins with our thinking. So I think fall in love with learning and growing our wisdom and our way of thinking, our way of seeing the world, gaining more perspective. That process will turn it into a powerful solution. When you truly feel empowered because you have the internal resources to deal with whatever is on the outside, that is truly very fulfilling experience. I would tell myself, instead of looking for external resources all the time, where, like, I can pay this guy to help me build this. I can ask my mentors, which is important, to give me all the advice. I would find the middle way, sort of, in a way, say that, hey, I want to learn how you think. I want to grow so that I can become the solution to my problems. And I think I've realized that a bit later, not too late either, but I think that's where I truly felt empowered. You are the solution.
That's great. I love that advice. I agree that the learning journey never ends, and it starts sort of internally, which people can have trouble understanding that aspect of it. But I agree with that, and I really like that insight. So thank you, Wen. And that's the last question that we have for you today. So thank you so much for attending. We really appreciate your time, and I'm sure our learners will really benefit from all of your insight, and hopefully it will help them in their future career paths. So thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.